first guest of the live stream studio here at the lunch hour of BevNet Live is Afzal Hasan, the president and general counsel of Origin House. Afzal, thank you so much for being with us.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on board.
This is your first BevNet Live?
Absolutely. Very exciting times. Have been really just sucking up the energy and excitement in this atmosphere, and really glad that you're now starting to look at the CBD space too.
Yeah, I mean, this comes on the heels of our Cannabis Forum, which we held on Saturday. A lot of interest in the space from food and beverage companies, and you're starting to see some of that, really bleed into some of the brands that are in the coolers here. You just tried a shot brand called Lumen. It's a hemp elixir. What do you think of that product?
It was definitely as promised. I feel a little bit rejuvenated. I'm excited to see what happens through the course of this interview as well as it sinks in.
Now, we should explain exactly what Origin House does. What is your mission? What's the company do?
The summary of it is that our focus is on creating brands for the cannabis industry into the future. We are a company that's focused on cannabis brands. The way that we're going about it, though, is quite different from most of the other companies that are out there in the space. As opposed to buying up licenses or production facilities or trying to create our own unique bespoke products, we've really decided to latch on to entrepreneurs that are already out there in the industry and try and provide them with the tools and resources that they need to be able to reinforce and create these very exciting ties to consumers that people call brands. That is really what we're looking at, is that trust relationship and developing that trust relationship. And the unfortunate part is that the cannabis industry, because of all the complications that are presented from a practical perspective of operating in it, it presents a lot of challenges for entrepreneurs that are trying to create that bond between consumer and themselves or a product. And that's where we step in to try and help them with that journey.
So are you sort of a 360 kind of service supplier, provider to brands?
In a sense, yes. We started off as a company that was actually an investment fund of sorts. We started to make a number of investments. We then, about a year and change ago, decided that we were going to take a different route to how we were going to achieve our mission. And then we started to build up our own operational infrastructure. So when we took a round at the market, we decided that we wanted to be involved in the part of the market that allowed us to be a partner to virtually every other company that's out there, and that was by being a distributor. So the core of our business platform is a distribution business in the state of California. We work with 400 plus dispensaries that buy our products, and there's about 36 brands now that are on our portfolio that we are a distributor for. Some of those brands we actually own, some of them we manufacture, and that's a sizable fraction that's growing up over time. But our focus is to create this infrastructure that third-party brands can use. And so having that platform, we're now adding more capabilities that are then outsourced to our third-party brand partners to be able to use, because we have the capital and the wherewithal to onboard a lot of these high-end functionalities that they might not be able to pay for themselves.
So just for context, how large is the market for CBD-infused, cannabis-infused products in your neck of the woods in California?
And the estimates are in the billions, absolutely. And we look at it right now, and there is an active and thriving black market that's out there. There's also, obviously, an active and thriving legal regulated market. The estimates for just that activity right now is in the billions, but that also ignores the fact that there is a new frontier that's ahead of us. I mean, that beverage that you gave me just before we started chatting, that's representative of a new category and a new market and a new user that's going to be coming in. And estimates of the size of that market are sometimes multiples of what the existing legal market is. So a lot of exciting potential, and nobody even really knows what the scope of it could be until we start to get into it.
Now, you said you work with a lot of brands, have a few that you own, some in your portfolio that you just work with on a variety of levels. What do brands need to do to come to the table? Like if let's say a new beverage brand wants to launch and it's a CBD infused beverage brand, and they say, okay, what can Origin House do for me? What's that conversation like? Where do you start?
It always starts with the product first. And I always get concerned when anything other than that product is put front and center, because we're in that state of evolution right now in the industry where the product is so critical because of how different and versatile and malleable it can be. You take alcohol, for example, as a comparator. Your active ingredient is a single one. It is ethanol, and you vary the percentage of it from low to high, and that drives the tenor of your experience effectively. With cannabis, you have a multitude of cannabinoids. You have the two major ones, THC and CBD, but a plethora of lesser cannabinoids that have known effects that are very different. And then over and above that, you have this so-called entourage effect that comes into play with the terpenes and other flavor molecules that can also modulate your experience. And so the reason why that's important in the context of a product is that you can have so many different experiences that come out of a product that it is critical to match that product with the experience that you're trying to create and sell, that brand promise that you're trying to further. And that's why when you ask about what's the most important thing or where does it start, it is that product and then figuring out, does this actually tie to that brand promise? Because if it doesn't at the first instance, trying to convince a consumer about it, you can certainly apply a lot of sales and marketing to create an artificial relationship. But what we're really curious and interested about is that authentic tie between a product that has been formulated for a certain type of consumer to address a certain problem or issue in their life.
Your understanding, education, and ability to communicate what cannabis can do, the different cannabinoids in cannabis, is clearly at a very high level. Consumer awareness and understanding about the benefits of cannabis are not necessarily there. In fact, there are some people who would simply refuse to want to know anything about it simply because, of the association with marijuana and the fact that it's an illegal drug, et cetera, et cetera. So, what do you think has been the most effective way to change consumer perception, or at least talk to consumers about CBD and other non-psychoactive ingredients in cannabis?
Well, I think it's happening around us right now. Just companies that are coming out there into the space and making bold moves, like potentially trying to get listed into Whole Foods or 7-Eleven for distribution, et cetera, sparks that conversation where you can then start to have the dialogue, because otherwise it is really hard to get into an active debate and a dialogue with the consumer that isn't even interested in having that debate with you. So we're now at this very base level where people are starting to have this spark come up, and mainstream news outlets and opportunities like this, for example, are great ways to get this information spread into the hands of influencers too. And I use the term loosely because this conference, for example, isn't there for social media influencers to attend that have millions of followers. But what you've got over here are people that are ensconced in the beverage industry and are influencers in a business sense. Those are the folks that are critical to influence at the first stage so that they can then start to expand the web of how you can communicate with consumers. And so it's a multi-stage exercise that really does center around media and communication with the public, because that's where our battle starts, is really the dialogue and the information.
We have about a minute left. There's a really big farm bill in Congress that's about to be, I guess, discussed and then voted on. What does that farm bill entail, and how can it benefit the market for CBD and other cannabis-based products?
Without getting into specifics, the Farm Bill for the first time has some explicit provisions that are being contemplated that would allow for the explicit regulation of CBD, which is one of the two main cannabinoids that have activities that we've seen that are broadly used in the market. Opening that up will allow the FDA to finally start to regulate this substance and allow for it to be proliferated around the country. But there's a lot of challenges ahead, because we need to still see what the regulation looks like. So a tremendous opportunity that's there. Hopefully it's going to allow for a cannabinoid to come out into the broad market for the first time in a legal sense, and then hopefully pave the way for THC to do the same thing into the future.
So write your senator or congressman is what you're saying?
Exactly.
All right. Afzal, excuse me. I just wanted to say that I really like your outfit, by the way.
I'd say the same back to you.
Yes, we tried to get everything exactly right. We're pretty close, I'd say.
I'll take notes for next time.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much for being with me on the Livestream studio. Really appreciate it, and thanks so much for your sponsorship as well.
It was a pleasure. Thanks
Outstanding.
for having me aboard.
Good seeing you.